Hello, my name is Kyle Bradford, and today we're going to be talking about manually upgrading or migrating the iPrint appliance. We're going to be following TID numbers 7018081. This migration can work for any version of the appliance to any other version, or you can do it from the same version to the same. Now there's documented ways and technologies provided to accomplish this. One is the iPrint config method. The advantage of that is it's easy to do. The disadvantage is that zip file can get quite large and cause some problems if you have a lot of printer drivers. Plus, there's a lot of complexity involved there where the iPrint config.zip file from your original server that you're going to be pushing to the new server contains a lot of information and increases the complexity of this operation. For example, enabling the mobile printer settings, configuring the remote renderer, configuring email, applying the license file, configuring third-party certificates, importing eDirectory. There's a lot of going on there. And so an alternative is this manual migration, which we'll be talking about. But there's also another documented method. It's called the disk-to-disk migration or the secondary disk migration. The iPrint appliance requires two disks. One is for the operating system, all the system files, and the other are the data files. These are the files pertinent to the iPrint configuration, all the eDirectory, and all those other configurations I just mentioned earlier. The downside of the disk-to-disk migration is similar. There's a lot of complexity involved, plus the added disadvantage of you are changing your production, your original source server. And so going back might be, there might be risk involved there. The manual migration has no risk because you are not destroying your original server. If something doesn't go quite the way you want it to, you can always power on your original server. And that's what we're going to talk about. This TID steps you through this, and some of these steps I'm actually going to use screenshots so it goes a little bit faster. I'm going to pull those screenshots up right now. Step one is to, while the original server is still up, in this case my original server address is kwbradford3.lab.novell.com. I've connected to it through Winscp, and I just created a folder on my Windows machine called Migration. You can call it whatever you want. And I've connected to the iPrint server, and I'm in the iPrint directory, and I just drag and drop the resdir directory over. It can be quite large, and so it can take a few minutes to copy all those printer drivers. The resdir is the resource directory, or the printer drivers. Then you browse out to Novell iPrint print_manager.iprintappliance.psm, and in there you'll see a padbtxt.xml. Drag and drop that over. Mine is only 9 kilobytes. Yours might be maybe even over 100 kilobytes if you have a lot of printers, but it won't be large. And then finally, there's an iPrint INI file. It contains a few configuration options that you might have set, so you might as well copy that over. That one will always be around 10 kilobytes, and that goes quickly. After you've copied those files, it's time to power off or shut down or suspend, which is what I did in my case, your original server. Now take note of my IP address and my DNS name because it's important that my new setup have that same information. So I go ahead, power that off. Then I bring up a new iPrint appliance. In this case, it's 3.0. You might be using a different version. And you're probably using ESX. I'm using VMware Workstation, same concept. I open that OVF file. I create a second disk, which is required for the iPrint appliance. Power that on. Has the initial splash screen, the initialization, the license that you accept. Here you define your root password and VA admin password, and they do not need to match your previous configuration, but they can. Here, it's very important that you put in the same DNS name as your original server and the same IP address. This is important because workstations have printers installed which are pointing to that address, and we want to continue that same address so you don't have to uninstall and reinstall printers. This will be seamless to your end users. Here you can always just click Configure. It goes through a configuring stage, and then eventually you come to this screen. This screen tells you to go to the iPrint management console, which is on port 9443. And so once you do that, you put in your VA admin user, the password you defined, you click Sign In. Here you will define your admin password, type it in twice. This is your eDirectory admin password, and click Finish. It'll go through more setup, and then you're done. And it'll ask you if you want to participate in the product improvement. I suggest you do because it gives us information that'll help us understand how our administrators are using the product so we know where to focus our efforts as a development team. So that was steps 1 and 2. Step 3, if you had users imported from another directory, Active Directory, eDirectory, go ahead and configure that again. Here I am logged into my new server, and this is live now. I'm no longer doing screenshots, and this is my new server. And you can click Manage iPrint Appliance. Notice I don't have any printer agents yet because I haven't copied that configuration over yet. Directory servers, and here I can add a URL of my source directory, whether it's eDirectory or Active Directory. You can give that an alias name. And then I need to define a user which has rights to read those users and group objects, the password. Here I get to select if it's eDirectory or Active Directory. And then the GUID, that it'll either be GUID or object GUID. And then the attribute name to reference. It could be CN or SAM account or UID. And then you'll click OK and it'll import users. I'm not going to do that step, but if you had done it before, you should do it again. And I'll show you why in a minute. Let's go back to our TID and see where we need to go next. If you had printers that existed in an OU other than iPrint Appliance, you will need to manually create those OUs using iManager. Let me show you how you can know if you have printers in OUs other than iPrint Appliance. This is the padbtxt.xml file that we copied off. Notice the host name, the address that my print manager is bound to is that. The tree name, which is a random generated name, it shows here. And here's the name of my print manager, which was defined for me. The eDirectory server I'm binding to, which happens to be the only address I have. And the driver store object. A redirected printer is a deleted printer. The print manager database keeps track of printers which were deleted. And here is the organization object where my printer object resides. Notice mine's an iPrint Appliance. If it was in any other O or OU, then I should go into iManager and manually create that. Here's my next printer. He's also an iPrint Appliance. And I'll just keep scrolling through. And notice all my printers, if I keep scrolling, you'll see are in the iPrint Appliance O. So for me, I don't need to manually create any OUs, so I will skip that step. The fifth step is to copy files. I'm going to refresh this page. I actually updated this TID. Before we copy files, we need to enable SSH so that Winscp and PuTTY can connect. Because this is a new server, and by default, we disable that. So you go into the System Services, highlight SSH. I'm going to start it. And I'm going to do myself a favor, and I'm going to set it to start automatically as well, so that if I restart my server, I don't have to go through this again. It'll start up on boot up. Now I'll be able to connect using Winscp. So I can copy files. I'll move that over here. I'm going to connect over SCP. I'll put in my root user, my root password. You'll probably get a prompt saying that you haven't accepted the certificate, and you'll go ahead and accept it because it'll be a new connection to this new server. Here I have those files that I copied, plus I have this license file here. I added that for reasons you'll see at the very end. I want to copy the XML file. I'm going to copy it to the temp directory, and let's refer to the TID. So I enabled the SSH service, and now I'm going to copy the XML file to the temp directory, the resdir to the same directory that it should be, where it was before. So that's in var. Actually, I'm going to do this first. I'm going to go into the temp directory. There we are. Just drag that over. And then the resdir, I'm going to go to var. Is var opt novel iPrint. Here's the resdir. Notice I have a Linux driver repository, but here I have a whole slew of them. I can copy all of it. I'm going to omit that deferred compressions text file. I don't need that, but it wouldn't hurt to do it. I'm going to say yes to all to overwrite what's there. And here it's going to copy all those files. And the last thing we're going to copy is the iPrint INI. While that is going, I am going to open up a putty session to the server. Here. You'll probably get prompted to save the security key. I'm going to make this a little larger so you can see this better. Appearance, change. I'm going to make it bold as well. Let's see how 18 looks. Yeah, that's better. Let's see how my Winscp copy is going. It is complete. Now I'm going to copy the iPrint INI. And that is in the var opt novel iPrint htdocs. There's already an iPrint INI. I'm going to overwrite it with one from my original server. Say yes to that. And I'm done copying the files. Now I'm going to go on to the next step, which is prepare the padbtxt.xml. Everything about it should be right, except for one thing will definitely be wrong. Remember, we copied it to the temp directory. If you're not familiar with the VI, I'll tell you what I'm hitting. I'm going to hit insert, and that the insert key on my keyboard. You can also hit the letter I. Either one will get you into insert mode. I'm going to delete the tree name, at least the number portion. And let's look at what the tree name is. There's lots of ways to look at the tree name. In fact, the TID gives you one suggestion. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and do what the way the TID suggests. I'm going to back out of here. I'm going to save those changes. So my tree name is this. So I believe I have that copied in my buffer. Let's see, I'm going to hit the letter I this time to go into insert mode. And I'm going to right click. And yes, I had it in my buffer. So now my tree name is correct. It's correct for the new server. Everything else will be the same. Notice the OU, or the O that the printers reside, is iPrint Appliance. And you don't need to look at this much more. So I'm going to hit the escape key. I'm going to do a colon and then WQ and hit enter. Now the change has been saved. If you want to look at the change, you can do a less. And sure enough, it's that updated number for the tree name. I'm going to hit Q to get out of there. All right. I have completed step 7, and now we are going to import the printers. Just in case you're interested in knowing, if you have driver update enabled configured on any of your printers, that's a bad idea to have that enabled all the time, especially when you're migrating or moving to another server, because the intent of that feature is when the driver changes, you want the printer to be automatically uninstalled from all the end users and automatically reinstalled. Well, in this case, the system is going to believe that all the printer drivers are new because they have a new timestamp on the file. In reality, they're not new, so you don't want to accidentally force all of your end users to have printer uninstall and reinstall. So this sed command is turning that feature off for all your printers, which I strongly recommend you keep them off all the time for all printers until you actually do update the driver profile or printer driver. And then you can turn it on. And then I'd only keep it turned on temporarily until all the workstations got updated. So we're going to manipulate that text file, the padbtxt.xml in the temp directory. We're going to restart. We're going to stop the print manager. We're going to change the permissions on the resdir directory and recursively with a -r because we used root to copy that resdir there, and that's not correct. It should be iPrint, user iPrint and group iPrint. We're going to restart the driver store so that all the drivers get read. Then we're going to we're going to start the print manager using a -x switch, which means import the XML, and we're going to authenticate as the admin user that we defined not long ago. Then we're going to start the print manager, and then there's one more step that needs to be done, and that's restarting the mobile service. So let's grab this. I'm going to copy it. I'm going to pull up my putty session. I'm going to right-click in putty and hit enter. There it's shutting down the print manager. Restarted the driver store. It's wanting to do the import, which needs to know the password for admin. And now it's processing each of the items. And it's restarted. It started up the print manager. Now it's restarting the mobile service, which includes restarting Tomcat. And then we'll be done soon. While this is restarting Tomcat, we're done with this part of it. Step 9 is some manual configuration. This manual migration, this XML import, requires you to also go in and mobile enable printers, which is not difficult to do. It requires you to reconfigure remote renderer, which I think is a good idea anyway, because with each new version of the iPrint appliance, we have new technology for the remote renderer. So it's a good idea to start fresh anyway. You'll need to configure email printing if you had that done. You'll need to apply license file, which we're going to do. I'm going to show you in a moment. And then configure third-party certificates if you have that. So before we go any further, I'll show you it is done. Everything was successful. I'm going to go here, show you in different places. Here's the PSM status page. I'm going to log in as admin. Notice all my printers showed up. That's great. If I go to the advanced and generate report and look at my Windows drivers associations, I can't remember which operating system I did it for. It looks like I did a lot for Windows 8 and 10. I had some for Windows 7. All of that happened. Let's go back to here, manage iPrint appliance. It's reading the list of printers. All the printers showed up. Here's where I would mobile enable printers if I needed that. That's one of the manual steps you need to do. And there, he's mobile enabled. And you can multi-select by holding down the shift key, and I'll hold it down and click here. It does all of those. Or I can do the control key, holding that down. I can pick them and mobile enable them that way. And I told you I'd show you, we're going to update the license file. I'm going to browse here. I'm going to go to my migration folder. Here's my XML for my license file. Yours will likely be named something different. Upload that. And now I am licensed. I have all my printers, all my printer drivers, all my configuration. It's really a fresh setup with all of your original print configuration and printer drivers. And let's say for whatever reason I didn't like the results of this migration. Super easy. I just power this guy down, power up the original server, and I'm back to where I started. So it's really a risk-free, fresh migration, and my experience is I've had lots of success with it. Thank you for watching.